They built a reservoir over a town, but the town never left. There's a lake in the United States that doesn't appear on many maps anymore. Locals in upstate New York call it Lake Hawthorne, though officially it's just listed as a man-made reservoir built in the 1930s. What most don't know, or don't want to know, is that beneath those cold black waters lies the remains of a town that should never have been drowned. The government said they relocated everyone before flooding the valley. They claimed the town was empty, abandoned, a casualty of progress. But the families who once lived there left behind more than just their homes. They left behind secrets and something that refuses to stay buried. Eric Dawson was a freelance photographer who specialized in abandoned places. Rusted factories, crumbling farmhouses, forgotten mining towns. He loved capturing decay. When he stumbled across a faded newspaper clipping about the town beneath Lake Hawthorne, he knew he had to see it. Locals at the diner warned him. "You don't go there after dark," the waitress whispered. "Why?" Eric asked. Her face went pale. "Because when the water's still, you can hear the church bell. But there's no church anymore." Eric laughed it off. Ghost stories were half the fun of urban exploration. He rented a canoe and set out across the lake just before sunset, his camera ready. The surface of the lake was unnervingly calm. No ripples, no breeze. Eric paddled toward the center where the water was deepest. The air grew colder, though the sky was still painted gold with evening light. Then he saw it, just below the water's surface, a roofline. The steeple of a church. He leaned closer, snapping photos when he heard it. Dong. A bell, faint but clear, echoing up from beneath the lake. Eric froze. His paddle slipped from his hands and drifted away. He fumbled for his phone, checking the time. 7:03 p.m. No reason for a bell to ring. No tower above the surface, just dark water. Then something brushed against the bottom of his canoe. A thud, like a hand knocking from below. Instead of leaving, Eric's curiosity pulled him deeper into the mystery. He dropped anchor and pulled on a snorkel mask. The water was murky, but he dove anyway, desperate for a closer look. Shapes materialized below him. Stone walls, collapsed houses, rusted cars, and in the center the blackened outline of the church. He swam closer. The front doors of the church were half open, as if waiting for him. Carved above the entrance were words eroded by decades underwater. "The dead shall not be disturbed." Inside, the pews were still lined up, though warped and rotten. On the altar stood a cross, tilted, but intact. Eric raised his waterproof camera, but before he could take a picture, movement caught his eye. A shadow slid between the pews. He kicked backward, heart racing. Then he saw them, faces staring up at him from the floor of the church. Pale, bloated, eyes wide open. Dozens of bodies, frozen in prayer, sitting where the congregation once gathered. They turned their heads in unison to look at him. Eric shot to the surface, gasping, nearly capsizing his canoe. His hands shook so violently he could barely grab the paddle floating nearby. He turned the boat, desperate to reach the shore. But the lake was no longer calm. Waves rose out of nowhere, slapping against the sides of the canoe. The sound of the bell grew louder, dong, dong, until it filled the night air. And then he heard voices, dozens of them, chanting in unison beneath the water. Words he didn't understand, but that chilled him to the bone. He paddled harder. The shoreline seemed farther than before, as if the lake had grown. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw a pale hand break the surface of the water. Then another, and another. The drowned congregation was rising. Eric's canoe slammed against the shore at last. He scrambled onto the muddy bank, too terrified to look back. But the bell kept ringing. The chanting grew louder. He ran to his car, tossing his gear in the back seat, his camera, his phone, everything except his sanity. He drove all night, not stopping until he was states away. When he finally dared to check his camera, every photo he'd taken at the lake was blank. Black frames, except one. The final image showed the inside of the church, but not as he had seen it. The pews were filled with townsfolk, alive, dressed in 1930s clothing. They were smiling. Their eyes, however, were completely black. And in the front row, staring directly at the lens, was Eric himself. They say Eric never spoke of Lake Hawthorne again. He moved to the West Coast, abandoned his career, and refused to go near water. But his story slipped out eventually, passed among other explorers, whispered in online forums, written in late-night emails. Some believe he imagined it, just another ghost story. But locals still avoid the lake after dark. They swear the bell still rings at 7:03 every night. And every few years, a canoe is found floating at the center of the reservoir. Empty. No sign of who it belonged to. But if you lean close enough to the water's edge, they say you can hear them. Voices chanting, calling, begging for someone new to join the congregation beneath the lake. So if you ever find yourself driving through upstate New York and you see the shimmering waters of Lake Hawthorne, do yourself a favor. Don't stop, don't look. And whatever you do, don't listen for the bell.